Greetings, everyone.
Shotgun!
Welcome back. What happened?
I just said shotgun.
Where?
Didn't you watch the commercial?
I did. Uther and Gul'dan are pretty spooked. StarLadder and iLeague StarSeries Season 3. You know, we're going to cut it off with shotgun screams in the middle of the game. So that happens again. Don't be spooked. We're just doing normal things. So today, we've already played 2 matches out of the 6 that we've got going forward. Now, the next one up, as I mentioned before, the supposedly short break. We had a bit of a technical issue on Zalae's side, but it's resolved now. We have Pavel versus Zalae. Pavel versus Zalae. Zalae is on the aggro decks, and we've got Pavel on the more control-y decks, definitely this time around. So we should see kind of a similar outcome to some of the stuff that we've seen in the past. Zalae is playing aggro Druid, aggro Paladin, Murloc heavy, so with 6/1 drops, Warrior, as well as the Quest Rogue, which was banned, and Pavel on the other side with a Jade Druid, the Paladin as a mid-range deck, the Taunt Warrior, which got banned, as well as the slower Gunther's Mage. Very Discover heavy, so the Burn Mage as you know it. Zalae is, of course, going to be favored in many of these matchups. The Taunt Warrior is one of the ones that he did not want to face off against, and of course took it out. So,
fortunately for him, there's a ban available in this game mode. So good for him. The Taunt Warrior is definitely problematic for some of his matchups. Even although like the Rogue would be favored against the Warrior, I still feel like he would just ban it every single time.
Yeah, I mean, you can block that Warrior from winning against the Rogue, but it doesn't matter because your other decks still have to get a win somewhere, and you don't want to get roadblocked by really any of the stuff that the opponent does. And the Jade Druid that Pavel has right now is looking very isolated because if it faces off against aggro Druid, well, it's going to have a bad time. If it faces off against aggro Paladin, it's going to have a bad time. And its best matchup is going to be that Warrior deck. So Pavel's lineup really comes down to that Druid really being able to take a win, I think. That's where the big weakness lies. This Druid for Pavel is not the deck you wanted to have up against this lineup from Zalae.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the same time, it doesn't feel as bad when your opponent... when you did ban the Quest Rogue, because that's literally the deck that just demolishes your every single deck in your lineup. Which is interesting, right? Because what we have seen in this tournament is that people didn't acknowledge the power of the Quest Rogue in the beginning, right? It's like, we have to remember, those decks were submitted on 9th of May. And at that point, people were still not sold on the Quest Rogue being a super powerful deck.
Yeah, people are still saying, oh, we know Miracle Rogue is just as good in most cases. Truth is, Miracle Rogue has upsides that, Quest Rogue doesn't have. You know, if you look at a matchup like Hunter, for instance, Miracle Rogue is going to do, of course, a lot better. Against something like Token Druid, Miracle is often better. Against hyper aggro decks, basically, Miracle Rogue is often a bit of a better fit. But when it comes to matchups like these, or like lineups like these, Quest Rogue is just strictly more capable of ending it, as the decks are slower. So like that mid-range Paladin for Pavel either, not going to find much of a good matchup either way. Token Druid rolls all over it. Murloc Paladin is just faster than it, and the Warrior is just pretty good at closing out games against that mid-range Pally. So I don't know really how I feel about Pavel's lineup here. Whatever he takes, aside from that Burn Mage, I think is going to struggle immensely.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that he's not running a big game Hunter in his Druid anymore.
Yeah, I wonder what card that was at the end of the day. I'm really not too sure what the card that was in there initially was. Might have been another Tar Creeper, right? That's a possibility. We've seen 2 Tar Creepers being run. Sometimes one gets cut. For ladder purposes, if he's running against a lot of decks that have the high attack minion, that would explain it. If he was running into another tournament as well, that's a possibility. So, something to keep in mind. His deck was changed. At least it didn't change much in the Kalento matchup.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Zalae is running 2 double vanishes in his Quest Rogue.
Yeah, it seems about correct. I think I usually end up seeing that nowadays in Quest Rogue. I remember the earlier builds of Quest Rogue were interesting. We had a lot of iterations with, Cold Light Oracles. People tried the...
Shield Bearers.
Yeah, people tried Shield Bearer, Voodoo Doctor. Voodoo Doctor made its way in there even as well for a little time. And now we see Tolvir Stone Shaper doing a ton of good work for people. It lines up super well against Paladin. It's been amazing against aggro because it gives you that one extra turn. Once you complete the quest, you're good to go. So if it buys you that one extra turn, it's absolutely fantastic. And it draws a lot of tempo out of your opponent, which you're transitioning into just a quest completion. So a lot of interesting tweaks on the quest rogue list for multiple players and multiple matchups. Probably one of the, oddly enough, techable decks in the meta, even though that sounds weird to say given how all-in it is. But there are so many flex one-drops that you can play. Feels really techable.
Yeah, and now I would like to jump to the aggro druid, because it feels like that's one of those decks where you can actually think about cutting one and innovate. The reason is that if the deck practically tops on 3-4 mana, there's no need of a double innervate, and you also can get chicken blocked by having two innervates at the same time. When you know that the other cards that you have in your deck are practically, don't have that much value if you innervate them out. Although one innervate can still help you with a Savage Roar after living mana, or just get off with a free drop on turn 1 and so on. But double innervates might be crippling, so the only reason to play double innervates in that deck is when you have batterized Hydras in it, right?
Yeah, and I think Zalae is running them. He's running, and we were talking about this with him. He was talking about Violet Teacher. He was saying, I don't know why people don't play Teacher. He was just ranting about how no one was playing it anymore, and it was wrong not to play it because it just wins games on its own. And he was doing the old man routine of just being grumpy about everyone. And he, in his deck so far, has been performing extremely well because, of course, Violet Teacher has been one of those staples with Power of the Wild. And so when you start talking about Bittertide Hydra, Violet Teacher, and Living Mana, and it's a very different deck you're talking about.
He has Fledglings as well, and those cards are like ferocious beasts when you can play them on turn 1s. That's when you benefit from having two innervates. Although, when the deck doesn't have Bittertide Hydras and Violet Teachers, I would favor just one innervate, because you want to have consistent turns. When you just draw two innervates in the beginning of the game, you're like, oh man, no, I lost so much damage, right? Because you can't push out for so much. You can't build a wide board and play for the Mark of the Lotus or for the Power of the Wild, because you will have not that many minions, right? And you have also patches. So if you get to draw patches and double innervates, it's like game over already.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely understandable when he plays Violet Teachers and Hydras. What is even more interesting is because of the fact that he switched the gears for the Hydras and the Violet Teachers, he doesn't need second Living Mana, which is interesting because Living Mana is a win condition on its own. It doesn't require any synergy. It's just such a powerful card on its own. You just play it, and it always is the same, right? I mean, depends on the turn, but it's super powerful. All right, but now we're jumping into the Mage versus the Warrior matchup.
So I would tell you usually, oh, this is very, very Warrior favored. But then I look at the hand texture and I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to have to slow down our evaluation of this here because no N'Zoth's First Mate, which is probably the best card to have in this spot, the only one drop the opponent plays that diffuses it is going to be Mana Worm. And even then, you still extract value against it. So Zalae, no weapons, is going to have to slow down a little bit, but you still need to understand that every play this Mage deck does is fairly low tempo. And so the 2/3 body itself is not that easy to deal with. You know turn 3's coming up. Those are the big drops. Those are the problem drops. And since you didn't see a 1-drop coming from that Warrior, you have to assume he's packed full of those mid-game pushes. Maybe an Arcanite Reaper, probably 2/3 drops, and maybe an upgrade even. So depending on what you're expecting from your opponent, you're just going to have to extract some kind of value AoE play from him. Maybe like a Glyph on turn 4 into a Flame Strike for 5. Something miraculous is going to have to come out.
What is very interesting to see here, sorry to kind of break the topic, but
go ahead.
Pavel did coin out on turn 2 an ice block. That was a setup for Medivh's Valet, because that's the only reason why you want to coin out a secret on turn 2, which is an ice block. And he had to change his plans because of Zalae having the Floating Berserker. So now, even although he committed to it, he had played the Potion of Polymorph instead, because he knew he sets up a good target for the Frozen Berserker. And he needs to have a way of dealing with it, and that means turn 4, Medivh's Zalae into a ping from the hero power to just get rid of that Frozen Berserker because it's such a huge threat.
Yeah, it's the biggest threat in the deck, I think. Plus, the Potion of Polymorph lines up super well against Kor'kron Elite. Now, it's not in the hand for Zalae, so clearly we won't get to see it in action. But if your opponent was planning on playing that Kor'kron Elite and jamming 4 damage to your face, nope, that's going to get halted. In this case, it's not going to hit that Kor'kron, still going to get some value, but that's not as high as maybe Pavel was looking for in this spot.
It's still fine because the opponent did use an entire turn to just to just play the Dread Corsair, which is usually played for 1 mana or less.
Yep.
So definitely a good turnout for Pavel.
Well, there's the option of the South Sea Captain into Heroic Strike, take the value trade, and push damage for 4. I kind of not the 4. Sorry, use Heroic Strike to kill the minion. You push 4 with your minions. Alternatively, Bittertide Hydra just seems solid. The problem with it is, if there's a minion left on board, then Fireball becomes really good. But if that's all the opponent does, maybe that's just fine.
Yeah, it pushes for 3 damage. Your opponent will lose 1 mana because of that Fireball, as you said. So I definitely like the Hydra, and it still allows you to drop 2 more Pirates next turn, which will buff the Raider as well.
This could be a Polymorph, could be big, could be a freeze.
No.
This is neither of these things. Could Arcane Intellect into another Glyph?
I mean, Arcane
First Life was
Missiles.
played, that's right, never mind.
Arcane Missiles can get some damage, but that will be profitable if your opponent will already be down a bit, right? And in this situation, he's at 30, so
Yeah.
that doesn't really give you much. So Ice Barrier is understandable here. Gives you 1 turn of attack from the Hydra back, at least. That's something, right?
I know, this is a very good board state for Pavel. I mean, he's supposed to be way worse than this at this point in the game. At this point, usually, if you're the Burn Mage player, you're looking a little bit more uneasy. But with double Ice Block set up and the Ice Barrier, you're mitigating a ton of damage. The clock has been slowed down by a lot of turns here by Pavel, which is exactly where he wants to be.
But Zalae needs to speed up, and I feel like the best way to win this game is just playing Arcane Reaper this turn, go face for 5 and for 8, and think about trading the Raider. That's about it. Of course, you play the Red Corsair as well. But
Sure.
I feel like this is the turn when you can actually think about trading the Raider with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, because the Sorcerer's Apprentice has actually value in your opponent's deck, and getting those spells by 1 mana less might be too good just for him. So maybe if you didn't want to sacrifice the Raider, now the Arcane Reaper will have to attack into it.
Yeah, and I feel like this is... So you're forsaking 5 damage, but you're potentially keeping quote-unquote 6 if that Raider survives. So you might be squeezing 1 extra damage here, even though it doesn't seem like much. And that way you have 2 Pirates next turn.
Ooh.
That's gonna sting! And the smile on Pavel's face as he realizes what he just did. Oh my god!
Zalae with the eyebrow.
Unbelievable! He does it again!
Man. Well, he has his book. Like, he needs to get his book right now to the camera. Pavel, please do that.
This is amazing. Well, it's not over though. I mean, Zalae's got the damage, man. He can
tons
push.
of damage.
Yeah, he's not done, but it's still amazing to look at this huge threat that went unanswered, and then suddenly, Paveling Book does its thing. I can't believe this.
I really wanted to keep a straight face, but yeah.
There's no way, man. You can't. This is just one of those moments. Zalae's face also indicated, well, what can I do about this, right? Just babbling book things.
You still have to get some value out of the Raider, I think, and just trading it with the Mana Vamp feels fine, I would say. I mean, you commit to Captain, then you can trade with it. You still
I don't think this Raider is worth more than 6 damage over the course of turns, right? Because that's what you'd be looking at if you decided not to trade it.
Wow. Just
He's
10?
playing around, assuming that he gets because he gets to pop the block twice, right? With the weapon plus the Corcron.
Okay, but he
Kinda
sets up his
sketchy.
opponent at 6, and his weapon is at 6. So that's weird. And his Saucy
Not sure
captain
about
doesn't
that.
see value right now.
I'm not sure about that play by Zalae here. I see why he did it. I just don't
Alright.
think.
This
Never mind.
helps a bit, but it's kind of lucky, right, to get that deckhand right now.
Is it though? He's got 2 Mortal Strikes, double deckhand left, and he's got the Heroic Strike number 2. So with the extra Corcron, so he's thinking I have like 7 outs, and the Fire War Axe even bails him out. Okay, I think I see what he's doing. He was playing to his deck's outs with like 10 left, like 10 cards left that just popped the block.
But he was still setting up a pop next turn, right? The only thing that would stop the block, stop popping up the block, would be a Frostbolt to the face.
Yes, indeed.
That would be like the only thing that can happen. But it would still block him because he had only Corcoran Elite, and then he would have to top deck another damage, right?
Yeah, and it couldn't possibly be.
And the man of him would have been dead, and you would have still minions on board that were unkillable. No, okay, well, he made the decision. It's still good for him because he is able to pop the block right now. Add 2, which is very important because now Fear War Axes also give you the pop if you will need to use the weapon for something else.
Well, if Pavel freezes that guy's face repeatedly, there's no block pop, man. Like, this is... If that face gets frozen a few times...
Ooh, look at that. Who shows up? And now that's a very problematic situation for Zalae because he didn't clear up that Manavum. The 1-drop that could. Now will just take over the game.
I feel like that play by Zalae played to the deck's outs, but didn't really accomplish anything different.
Nah, I just feel like it was
cleaning up the worm. I think it played around AoE, maybe. I don't know, because you didn't need to clear.
But you know,
you develop
that in
onto
this
the board.
matchup, when you lose the board, you will never get it back. So,
yeah, sure.
Captain played right now doesn't establish anything. While it did actually give him value at that point because it did push for additional damage, and it did give him a good trade on the Manavum, which is now like a very problematic thing for him.
And now Pavel can just heal himself back up to 15. Zalae not having what he needed. I feel like maybe there was there a slight tilt from the polymorph
Maybe
on the Bitter Tide.
Yeah. Also, very good decision by Pavel, just ignoring the Saucy captain. No reason to trade with it.
Yeah,
there's literally not a single card that will just given out to Zalae.
Time to put ball in that Face Warrior deck.
Yep.
And
That's
Pavel's
about
gonna
it.
scoop it. And that's a bad matchup for Pavel too. So that was the closest thing to an even matchup as I think he had in the lineup matchups. And he ended up with pretty good babbling book. We'll not kid ourselves. I don't think it necessarily single-handedly won the game because there were a few other key decisions that could have been made differently by Zalae that might have led to him winning if that Mana Worm hadn't been around, for instance. But the most important part is Pavel's early game setup. If you go back to look at it, he played for the Medivh's Valet, changed gears at the last second, played the Potion of Polymorph, recovered tempo, saw there were no weapons, then got a really good turn 4, transitioned nicely into the Archaeologist for second Ice Block, and put himself in the position of getting that Alexstrasza. So, despite the babbling book, which I think tilted Zalae a little bit,
Yeah,
the rest of the deck, the game was played very, very well by that Mage.
Yeah. But that Manavum, again, it just took so much with like the damage that it dealt. I think it was actually 16 in the end. Something along those lines, It
was like a little bit above 10, yeah. I'm not sure exactly the number, but it was way above what you'd expect. Out of a 1-drop, to put it mildly. And Zalae now, with the double South Sea Captain opener against Paladin, it's kind of it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you'd love to just get them out there early to buff each other, but you know that if the time it takes you to get them out usually allows for the Paladin to play that True Silver, so it's just slow enough to be frustrating.
But you get the patches with to attack. So
right, which is the big deal.
Yeah, which is big deal because, well, he did draw the Frozen Berserker, but before that, I think it was an obvious just turn to play Sophsy Captain, and just trade with the patches, and then on the upcoming turn you play another Sophsy Captain. You have a 4/4, so if your opponent doesn't have a Truce of a Champion, it's actually pretty big, right? There was an option also to play Frozen Berserker just this turn, and then next turn into a Sophsy Captain, trade with the Hydrologist, get that 4/4 Frozen Berserker online, smash the face, right? And still have like 2 threats that need to be destroyed right now. Because both are very problematic for Paladin.
Well, now we might see Zalae opt for that Frothing Berserker, but
with the upgrade, right?
Yeah, the upgrade is definitely super tempting. The thing is, Bloodsail Cultist for now is not enabled. There's no pirate on the board. There's nothing to really give that weapon a huge amount of value. But the way the hand's lining up for Zalae, very quickly that could change. Extremely quickly that could change. And this is really what he's playing around here. He's just trying to maximize his pirate presence to guarantee that cultist.
I like this as well.
Yeah, I prefer this even. There's like the frothing was the obvious play, but for these cultists not to be stranded, you need to have a pirate.
And there's a chance you can just draw on Zov First Mate, and then you're like, I don't really want to play the cultist alongside with this, right? Because it will destroy my Fairy War Axe, and now he will have like really huge value out of this Fairy War Axe.
Yeah, he's gonna get a lot of mileage out of it, that's for sure. And this, there's a lot of damage coming in for the Paladin. It doesn't seem like much for now. Pavel's thinking, oh, I can stabilize. This seems pretty simple.
It's a 2-mana Arcanine Reaper, right? That's definitely something you need to think about.
Handmade, and now Pavel with the Stealth Minion is setting up for a brilliant Spikered Steed turn, which is going to hamper his ability, Zalae's ability to keep going.
Maybe not even that. He can just kill the patches with the Finja and then play Spikered Steed on something else.
Go ahead. Sounds good to me. I mean, you want to just get that protection on it, go.
But still, 6 attack Fairy War Axe is a demolishing weapon. So now it all depends on the Pavel. What will he draw? He goes for the Spikered Steed right now.
It's the highest health minion he's gonna pull, right? Nothing else in his deck has more, and he gets to kill the biggest minion on his opponent's side.
Yes, that's a very good point.
I mean, he's got like 13 health worth of taunts. 13! This is completely absurd.
This is where Pyro is like, ugh, I had it. I was so close.
You thought Sunwalker was a good 6-drop taunt. Let me present to you Spiker's Steed. God, that card is insane.
Yep. All right, double.
Just look at this.
Something that usually people were like, oh my god, double for them. Like, how will I deal with this? But it's an easy when you still have board presence.
Yeah, and then a way to buff your guys. It's just one of the easiest things in the world if you've stabilized to this point. These 5/4s look threatening, but with a full hand of options, definitely not as big an issue.
Blessing of Kings on the Stegadon will add additional points that have to be soaked up by the warrior to go through. I like the trade with Zalae. Like, he has to go through it anyway.
I mean, he hasn't lost the game yet, but with the Secrets and the Ancient of Blossoms in Pavel's hand, I'm thinking there's a very low chance that this can be recovered from. We'll see, though.
I was thinking about maybe just Megazord instead of the Peacekeeper. But this is fine as well.
This is a bit more flexible when it comes to trading afterwards, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you get to use Megazord on your Murlocs afterwards. A tiny bit more flexible. Like, the edges are not that big. Zalae's gonna need a weapon to trigger this. Okay.
You know what's interesting? Finja was the only card for Pavel, oh my god, to activate the Spikered Steed. Every single other minion would have been killed, just to play around it. And Finja is the only card in the deck that has stealth. That was so crucial.
That was pretty much the winning card for Pavel. Like, he drew it just before the turn came up and had it exactly on 5.
Oh my god. Work of Flame with Blessing of Kings, that just spells GG.
Ancient of Blossoms alone is gonna make Zalae just facepalm. then
Yeah.
probably just scoop this, but
Probably
stick
more
around for
tilting.
good measure, maybe. I don't know. I'd be gone, man. I'd be just gone. Go back home, Zalae. This Pirate Warrior is not working. This mid-range Paladin's not supposed to do that well.
Well, to be fair, Zalae played pretty well this game, and he was just blown out by the Finja.
Didn't find
It's-
early. Very
it's-
slow curve for him, honestly.
Yeah, but he made the best out of it. I feel like it was still a very good opening against this kind of Paladin, because you get the mileage out of the captains and the 14 Berserker, or 14 Berserkers. But at the same time, it's not even about the Finja's ability that he just pulls out under Molochs. It's just about the fact that it had stealth. That's the only thing that mattered in that situation. And because of that, Pavel just enabled a huge sink of damage. When you think about it, he was at 11 HP. That weapon was killing him, you know? Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
Another line of defense in case we needed it, but we're going to try to end the game right now, because anything we pick up that deals damage is going to win, and those Murlocs are going to go face for the win and end it. Zalae is going to be 2 wins down against Pavel, and that's pretty sketchy. But the Jade Druid is the last deck in Pavel's lineup, I think, and if I'm not mistaken, if this Pirate Warrior is able to do it, and it's a very even matchup, then I think the other 2 decks from Zalae can roll all over it. It's going to come down to this Pirate Warrior versus Druid, though.
Yep. And well, to be fair, the amount of armor gain in those Jade Druids, it's obscene and can just win the game on its own. I just wanted to remind that Zalae is currently on the first place in this group, and he has 4 wins and 1 loss. So having a win here would just guarantee, almost guarantee him a second or first place, and that would be just super important to advance into the land finals. But in case he loses, it's getting, you know, just uncertain if you'll have actually the top finish. So it's a very important match for Zalae. At the same time, for Pavel, every single match right now is super important because he already has 2 losses.
And Zalae with the misplay here draws the patches. I mean, clearly should have played better. I mean,
Sorry, Pavel actually has 3 losses. Sorry.
right? He basically can't afford to lose this.
Yes, exactly. And it's a good way to win it, right?
Double Jade Idol in the matchup, sure. I mean, that's a pretty good way to open up the ball. He would have probably liked to have a Jade Blossom on the coin to get the ramp going, right? To really consolidate his Jade lead. Zalae getting a little bit of a slow start, but, you know, even the best card from Druid on turn 1, which is Jade Idol, is not that great against the N'Zoth's first mate. So Zalae, all he needs here would just be kind of a dry turn from his opponent to then transition into his turn 4 and 5, because those are amazing against Druid. The Korkron, not so good against some of the plays that the opponent can make, but that Bitter Tide, man, that can just...
that would be problematic. No more mulch for the Druid players, so how to deal with that? It's a very similar situation to Mage. You just need to several points of several sources of damage put into that Hydra to deal with it, and that's hugely problematic. How do you want to do that? I like the tempo upgrade to the Sun, because that just means I have a curve.
Does Pavel find the ooze is the question. Zalae is just wondering if that's the case. If there's no ooze, then this 4-3 is just going to stick and it's no issue. In the meantime, Pavel's also opening up Innervate outs. You know, he's kept the coin for the 6 drops to be pretty powerful if he picks up the Innervate and suddenly can stop the incoming aggression. At the moment, though, not looking like it's going to happen.
No. That is pretty awkward. Still,
Innervate
Pavel
not picked up.
Okay, so now this is important turn. I feel like you have to commit to Jade Spirits if you want to play, if you want to win this game. You need to get back on the board. Next turn is Behemoth, and you will have a 3/3 Jade Golem into a 4/4 Golem, which allows you to play more removal game in the upcoming turns because you have Elfin Scale as well. You will gain some armor, and you're able to clean up some of the board. So I like the Jade Spirit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that was definitely the line of play. Although it's not removal based, it's probably the one that gets you and makes you stay in the game the longest. But that 8/8, man, that's just gotta feel terrible. And you know, if you're Zalae, that this 8/8 probably does what it has to. And again, going back to the pre-match mentioned, if this matchup is won by Zalae, that's the worst matchup left out of the way. Okay, maybe we change our plans here. Just connect for 12. How about that?
Oh my gosh. That is a huge swing.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Okay, if Pavel will top the Gluttonous Ooze, that's something that will keep him in game. But
And even
otherwise,
then, I mean, that Bitter Tide's not damaged, though. That's the thing. Even Gluttonous Ooze does not salvage the Bitter Tide's power level here. It's going to keep him alive, but not going to make him win.
Innervate. All right, that helps a little bit.
Yeah, you get to use Earthen Scales on your biggest Jade to stay alive the longest.
So it's 6 HP, which is fine. It mitigates one swing of the weapon. You're able to kill the Grinskin, or yeah, well, that's most likely what you will do. What you can also do, and maybe that's better, you can play Earthen Scale on the Jade Spirit, trade with the Corcoran Elite, kill the Greenskin with the 4/4, and play the Jade Behemoth.
The problem is then I guess you're dead to any source of damage anyway, right? So it doesn't matter because the weapon's a 5/1 right now, so you'd be alive versus Blood Cell Cultist because there's no pirate to activate it, so that would help by killing the Greenskin. You'd be dead to Heroic Strike, you'd be dead to another upgrade, you'd be dead to Second South Sea. A lot of things kill you, but at this point everything kills you anyway. So maybe it's just okay. Maybe it's just good enough. Because it's when this Hydra connects, and this is the play he's going to make indeed. When the Hydra connects, basically what you're hoping for is that there isn't one damage to pitch into this 3/6. And that playing around the upgrade from Blood Cell Cultist helps a lot for that.
Well, that was unfortunate for Pavel, although Zalae, first time I feel like in those games, had a decent start, although had patches in his hand.
Just goes to show how badly Pavel would have been beaten up by that hand had it not contained patches. Yeah, the quality of the cards in Zalae's hand would have been better.
Any other card in patches just stacks up damage, basically. And in this situation, that would be crucial because not only the patches would deal additional damage because it's played for 0, you also gain a card that will most likely transfer some damage. So Pavel might have been dead already in the case when there was no patch in the hand. All right.
Pavel's still down to Jade Druid. I mean, let's talk about it again. I guess the aggro Druids from Zalae are going to line up perfectly well against this. The big strength of the Paladin against it is, number one, it goes wide. If it goes wide, the Druid cannot answer it easily. Druid can answer a few minions. It can't answer too many of them, and the Paladin is extremely good at getting too many of them. And then when you start talking Divine Shield, you start talking Spikered Steed, suddenly the Druid simply can't keep it.
Oh, he goes for the Chum? Okay, I was thinking about keeping it and just going turn 3, Chum into Hunter, just to play around the hero power.
I mean, it prevents wild growth. You know, it's one thing, but it doesn't prevent Jade Blossoms to be played when you want to.
Sometimes your opponent will just not have a wild growth. And then you lose the Chum, right? And at the same time, you guarantee that your Murlocs will be in play and they will require bigger removal than just hero power. So it has to be a ref. In this case, look at that. Pavel actually preferred the hero power instead of the wild growth. This is why I was surprised that Zalae played the Chum, because I feel like in 9 out of 10, you actually use the hero power instead of the wild growth there, you know?
The thing is, I think the 3/2, like the little Chum, does not matter as much as it seems at first glance, because what ends up happening is the swipe setup for the Druid is pretty simple if you just give him a small body. The only upside of it is that he didn't have kings in his hand at that point. If you play for the kings, then you're getting a guaranteed target for it.
Yes, but you also play...
Yeah, 5/1 drops in your deck too.
He plays for the Megazord, and he plays for Oracle as well. And for the Collide Seer, yes. And there's just so much synergy in his deck. Keeping any of those Murlocs alive against a Druid, I feel like it's just invaluable, you know? So I'm not sure about that turn. It did slow down Pavel, but at the same time, you've seen that he actually preferred the hero power instead of wild growth. And the reason is he is just worried about the Murlocs sticking to the board.
Pavel with a smirk on his face. I wonder what he's smirking about. Oh, Innervate Aya, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
Innervate Eye is a good thing to smirk on. I mean, you shouldn't be able to do that normally, right?
Lothar loving Innervate like usual, innervating that the Jade goodness. Zalae's got the obvious Blessing of King's play. The issue with that play is it actually doesn't set up anything particularly good because you're just giving that Aya something to do, which is honestly not super good. So if you played for the Kings, you'd have to value trade to really maximize what it does, and then at the end of that, what's the point? You accomplish so little. Whereas if the opponent has a turn 5 that's usually pretty dry, which is going to be the case, is going to be Jade Blossom Hero Power or a Jade Spirit on average, then you can play Tarim on its own if you want to set up a high health minion for Spikered Steed and take a value trade with your True Silver in the process. Because he's facing down 3 minions, instead of 2, it's feeling a little worse, but at least he picked up something off the draw.
Mm-hmm.
All these little considerations, man. Zalae played into basically everything for the Tarim setup if he didn't find another play that made sense.
Okay, this makes it kind of awkward for Pavel. If he doesn't have anything to remove that 5/5, and that was the read from Zalae. Although he didn't have a better play, but he did have the read that there was no removal in hand for Pavel. So there was a good play. Unfortunately for him, Pavel did get the wrap off the top and was able to secure board position once again with the Jade Blossom, and still has a really decent curve.
Yeah, so this is the kind of a nightmare position for Zalae because he's going into turn 8 and he's thinking, all right, well, that Primordial Drake does what it has to. I can't stop it. I've got no play. At least I can counter that Drake with my 3/7. And this is finally where he gets to play his game, because what he's been wanting so long is for that Sunkeeper to finally be able to stick so that it has enough health to stick around for a turn for Spiker Steed targeting. So at least now he's able to recover the board after about a decade of fighting off against the Jade that come out from Pavel.
What I think about just playing Gazetan and attacking with the hero power and just passing the turn?
I'm just playing all my cards, man. If I pick up Jade Idol, we're good to go. I think I'm playing everything. It's a minion-based deck. You push it off the board, and it
you're
just
right.
falls apart.
That's just definitely better. There's the Cold Light Seer.
There we go. I love this. I absolutely love this by Zalae. Lock that Druid out. Oh! That Nourish on the draw with Fangel left over just gave Pavel another shot.
That
Yet
was quite
another shot.
Sweet.
Just keeps getting chances, man.
Man, now he's getting to a point where those Jade Golems are something you can't really ignore. Like a 4/4 is the breaking point from my perspective. It just gets worse from that time. But if something just reaches the 4/4, 5/5, you're in a pile of trouble, especially if the opponent is not on low health. Because he can afford getting hit to swing back with those golems.
Yeah, you basically have low cards, low health. Sure, those golems are not a threat. The guy's got okay cards, equal card advantage, and he's got big golems. Now you're in trouble, and this is precisely where they're finding themselves. Now, Zalae doesn't know what's in Pavel's hand, doesn't know if there's Jade generators, but there is still the fear of that being the case. And now we saw just how awkward Zalae's turn was. The 3/6 lines up perfectly against what he had to offer.
Well, the Feather Wedge is not really that big of a pickup. It doesn't matter if it glows green. The 8 point of armor is just a bonus. He's at 26, so it doesn't really matter, right? In this case, it's just a removal. It's like Wrath, but it costs 1 more.
If Wild Growth picks up the other Nourish, though, we could be talking about a devastating...
It's not even that. It's going to be Jade Idol.
Well, sure. Give me anything that summons stuff or draws cards, and I think we're talking. There's a lot of them in the deck. Swipe
is not bad.
Pretty sick card in this spot.
And the thing is that the Tark Reaper with the Elfin Scales actually stops the attack from the Ashbringer for 1 turn. Interesting. He goes for the Feather Rage instantly. Okay, it's still, yeah, what I'm talking about. It's, of course it's fine, because you have a 3/6 Behemoth in the way, so it's basically the same as the Tar Creeper.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a correct decision by Pavel to just destroy it immediately.
Destroy them. Yeah, exactly.
Just deny any kind of potential synergy with another copy of Spike-Root Steed. The second copy of Blessing of Kings, because he knows that Zalae is playing that, because he showed it multiple times on stream already here at StarLadder. So definitely a good decision.
Okay, here Zalae is going to say, I'm going to put down a 9 strength unit on the board. You can't kill that. 9 health, that is. So because you can't kill that without Hero Powering, I should be able to have something stick around for Blessing of Kings on the following turn, which is okay. Plus, it sets up your Jade Behemoth low enough that I can finish it off with a hit of Ashbringer. But Zalae is just not going well, man. Like, his aggro lineup just not finding the cards it needs. We saw him have only 2 playable early game cards in his opening hand, and this deck is packed full of them. He's got a few 6 drops, a bunch of 2 drops, Cold Seers and War Leaders as 3 drops. Everything came out in the wrong order for him this game.
Well, I would just, you know, kind of like to debate the turn 1 play. It might have been detrimental to his hand with the Spike-Root Steeds and later on with the Blessing of Kings. That would have.
No, you're correct in hindsight. Right? In hindsight, definitely probably better to wait for the coin play, just to go, you know, Grimscale Chump, coin, Rockpool Hunter on turn 2 instead, because he was playing to 5 1-drops in his deck. There were still 5 left, so that's a huge amount if you really think about it. But if that whiffs and he doesn't pick up follow-up, then he's in a bit of an awkward spot. But the game's not over.
Ooh.
The game's not over.
But another amazing top deck for Pavel. Look at that. The Primordial Drake into the Rev clears up the entire board. Allows him to take back the board control and deny the attack from the Ashbringer because his opponent is at 13 life. And that Paladin has no way of gaining it back.
There is one way, and that is Stonehill Defender into Sunkeeper Tarim. And that would nullify the Drake's strength, make a 3/3 out of the Stonehill, and then have him inch his way back in the game, I think.
Man, but this is looking really odd. Okay,
well. We're just generating Jades.
Okay, interesting.
Which is Jade-narrating.
How do you feel about that? Because he didn't have access to the Jades, but he would have played the Tar Creeper instead, right? So he would have the 3/5. His opponent would have the 5/3 and a 5/2 would have destroyed the 7/1 and took the board control. Interesting.
I mean, the only way you lose is what? If the... Oh, man, look at that. There's another 2-drop in that deck, too, that's usually not found commonly. So, Zalae was really on a lot of outs for follow-up plays. Just didn't find any. So, yeah, I really don't know if this is strictly correct, but if you've seen 2 Steeds, 2 Kings, I think it's fine, actually. If you've seen that, I think it's okay.
Yeah, well...
It's potentially even the best, because you're locking out any type of board flood play from having any impact. And again, Zalae, without Stonehill Defender, Tarim is not going to make this happen. If he finds it off the draw, though, if he finds that Stonehill...
No, but it's also for 3 mana. That's it. Zalae is taken down by Pavel. 1, 2, 3.
And that means Pavel stays in the running, I think, for the group stage. Based on the current score, he's only at 3 losses, which means that he is still alive.
But he needs to win every single match from now on.
Sure.
He needs to get those 4 wins, right?
Yeah. He's not playing again today. I think his next match is going to be... Is this next match going to be the last day of this playoff stage with the group stage? I think he's got one planned for tomorrow and one for the 29th. So he should be back about twice for us. That being said, that's going to conclude the 3rd match of the day. It's been a very short break. The players are ready, but we need to finish up some last preparations before we move on to showcase that. It's going to be Colento versus RDU. We've seen these guys before. We've talked about Pavel versus Zalae. This is a very similar thing. It's going to be a slow lineup versus a highly aggressive one with a Shaman from Colento. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.